This bike does not have a special wheel. Any bike can roll backwards like this. If you've ever watched someone roll backwards on the bike, maybe you thought that they had a special wheel that was helping to do that. But the truth is, this skill can be done on any bike, and today I'm going to break it all down for you. We're also going to learn how to use it for some everyday riding skills. The skill of riding backwards on our bike is also commonly known as riding fakie. The term comes from BMX, where it's often useful when a rider lands a trick facing backwards and they'll need to quickly roll back for a little bit before they turn around. While you may not be blasting huge tricks and landing backwards on your bike, there are a bunch of ways that you can benefit from picking up the basics of the skill. And in today's video, I'll teach you 3 scenarios where this will come in handy. And even if you don't want to use this skill in your riding style, it's still pretty fun to do as a standalone trick. So whatever brought you here today, let's have some fun and learn about rolling backwards on 2 wheels. My name is Aaron, welcome to Super Rider. On this channel, we break down complex skills into easy to learn techniques so you can quickly apply them to your riding. Before we learn to ride backwards on the bike, I want to explain to you how this whole process works. I posted a short video about this a couple weeks ago and the comments were all over the place. Someone even told me I was lying, which was hilarious. Let me clarify the rollback process and what's happening in your wheel. Like I said, you can do this with any bike and any wheel. Nothing special is necessary to make the bike go backwards. The first thing we need to address is that when you pedal backwards, you're not contributing to the movement of the bike. When you see me roll back, I'm back pedaling, and I think that confuses a lot of people. It looks like my backwards pedaling is making the bike go backwards, and that's absolutely not the case. I can't speed up or create any backward movement with the pedals. The reason why I'm pedaling backwards is to prevent the wheel from catching and moving forward. We know that when we push on the pedals, the bike will roll forward, so what I'm doing by pedaling backwards is preventing the bike from engaging and rolling forwards. Imagine it like putting a car in neutral. If I put it in neutral, I can push the car in any direction with relative ease because nothing's engaging, it's just open. That's basically what we're doing here. You can get off the bike and test out this feeling. Just grab a pedal in one hand and the handlebar in the other. Roll the bike backwards and just feel what happens when you do that. Put a little pressure on the pedals and see how it stops your backward momentum. Now roll it back again, except this time keep the pedals rolling backward without any resistance. See how it rolls back? So if our pedals aren't making the bike move backwards, then what is? The reason why our bike rolls back is that we're adding backwards momentum to the equation. Just like we pushed the bike backward and kept our pedals from engaging the rear wheel, we have to create movement in that direction. That will be the main focus for today's session, both creating momentum and then applying it to the bike to get it to move. To bring this all together, the ability to roll backwards on a bike is the combination of creating backwards momentum and the technique of preventing the drivetrain from engaging by pedaling backwards. Now that we understand the basics, let's learn how to make it happen. I'm going to teach you the easiest possible way to start learning this movement, something you can do on flat ground. Some people like to learn fakies on a slight decline so they can use gravity to assist their rollback momentum, but I think it's best to start on flat ground. This keeps you in control and you'll be forced to do the movement entirely on your own without any help from gravity. Also, I highly recommend switching to flat pedals on your bike if you haven't already. This takes a fair bit of practice to get dialed in, and you're going to be stepping off the bike at the end of each attempt. You won't get any benefit from trying to learn this with clipless pedals, so it's best to keep it simple and run flat pedals if you want to learn this. Okay, let's aim to get a feel for that backwards momentum. We're not going to worry about doing a ton of back pedals just yet. We only want to start the movement. Once we figure that out, we can build on that foundation. We're going to roll slow and grab a bit of front brake, just enough to slightly lift our back wheel off the ground. Our weight rocks forward when we grab that front brake, putting us in an endo over the front wheel. Then as our back wheel comes back down to the ground, we'll let go of both brakes as we rock our weight to the back of the bike and just do a half back pedal motion. Getting the back wheel landing in time with letting off the brakes is the first thing to focus on. You want to be super smooth with your brake release, that way you transfer the maximum amount of momentum through the bike. So after you land the back wheel, pull your weight to the back of the bike and just give it a little back pedal. If you did it right, you're going to roll back just a little bit and then your drivetrain should engage, which should stop your backwards momentum. Get some repetition in here until you're feeling comfortable with the movement and the transfer between the front and back wheels. This should eventually feel pretty smooth, and after a while you might get an idea how to carry even more momentum through this movement. The two things that you can do to dramatically increase your backwards momentum here are to start by lifting your back wheel up a bit higher and to rock your hips back with a little bit more force. Your body weight movement and position on the bike make a huge impact on this movement, so focus on the way you're moving over the bike. If you're struggling at this point, stop and film yourself with your phone. The thing that holds most people back is that they think that they're moving super far on the bike, but in reality, they're not doing enough. When you film yourself, it's a lot easier to diagnose the issues and then address them to continue progressing. If you're able to carry some additional momentum through the rocking motion, try to do an additional back pedal or two and see how long you can go. The next thing I would suggest working on is to build your finesse with this skill. Try to minimize your front wheel endo movement while still creating that backwards momentum. Your body has to do a bit more work to get the same output, but it's worth it to learn this style so you're not always needing to roll into endos when you want to roll backwards.
The biggest mistake most riders make is that they lose all their momentum by holding their brakes too long. As soon as my back wheel is starting to drop down, I let go of my back brake. That way all I have to worry about is letting go of my front brake the second my back wheel touches down.
Riders can take it in a multitude of directions from here. A lot of riders like to see how far back they can pedal, and they'll find little downhill sections to help them maintain momentum. Other riders will incorporate it into other techniques, which is what we're going to work on next. Before we dive into a bunch of the ways to use this technique, if this style of tutorial has been helpful for you, please consider supporting this channel by subscribing. We've got a full summer of outdoor tutorials coming your way, and I want to make sure that you see them all. The first scenario where the rollback comes in handy is the track stand. Watch me track stand and see if you can pick out how I use the rollback skill to keep the bike balanced. I teach a few other approaches to this rollback in the track stand tutorial. I'll add in a link if you want to see how that specifically fits together. The next scenario where the rollback can be useful is when you don't make it up an obstacle and you just need a little extra run up to make it happen. You can use the rollback to back up your bike in order to have a second attempt at riding up onto an obstacle. Another scenario that I use often is during the front wheel pivot motion. When I land a pivot, I like to roll back when I land, and this helps me reset on the bike before I start riding in another direction. Sometimes I'll pivot out of a rollback, and that move is called a half cab. The rollback or fakie skill is something that takes a bit of time to develop, but now you've got a better understanding of what goes into it. Give it a try. It's guaranteed to make your track stands easier, if nothing else. In fact, go hit up this video next. You'll see exactly how it all fits together.